Thanks everyone for coming, and thanks for negotiating and braving a little bit of a change in plans that we had to accommodate thanks to Mother Nature yesterday. We had a few people that said that they couldn't come today, and probably an equal number that said, oh, now I can come today. So we've been able to kind of swap in and out a little bit. So as I said, we're expecting a pretty full room. That's testament to the interest, of course, and the questions that people have around the topic of irrigation. And so the Potato Board and the Department of Agriculture, we recognize that this was a high priority conversation, and lots of people with lots of questions this year. Lots of applications into the Department of Environment already, and even more questions from folks on how that process works, how well permits get decided on, how they should go about if you're new to irrigation, how you should go about planning around that and making decisions around that. So our hope is that we're going to cover a lot of that ground today. We're not going to cover everything, of course. It's only a one-day workshop, but hopefully today will be a good starting point for future discussions and future extension opportunities in the future as well. So we have a great lineup of people, both local experts and local folks that work with the government, both Department of Agriculture and Department of Environment, that'll be able to walk us through and answer some questions on this morning, mostly on how the process works, how we permit water allocation here in PEI. And the afternoon is going to be more about designing and implementing irrigation plans. And in the afternoon, we're going to, at lunch, when we go out for lunch, we're going to divide this room. One side is the big side will be, like I'm going to say, field crops, so potato, corn, that sort of thing. The far side of the room will be a little bit smaller, and that will be the concurrent session B, which is going to be mostly around drip and for fruit and veggie producers primarily, but that's what that session is going to be about. So before I go any further here, I want to just note, if you do not have a name tag, if you did not get a name tag when you came in, you will need a name tag to go for lunch if you're registered. So please pop out and grab one if you don't have one already. If you are a CCA and you're looking for CEUs, there are sign-up sheets out at the registration table. So you can either take the picture of the QR code or you can sign the sheets. So those are out there today. I think there's 4 CEUs in soil and water today for this session. There is coffee and muffins and cinnamon rolls and stuff out here to my left along the wall. We won't have a coffee break as such in the morning. We're going to keep rolling, so feel free to pop out there and grab something if you want. We also have some generous sponsors who have tables out there as well, mostly the irrigation companies. Their logos, as well as also Cavendish Farms, they're all sponsors of today, and their logos have been circulating here and will be due during the breaks. And we'll give them a chance to talk to you briefly at lunchtime as well. When we go for lunch, today is going to be a busy day at the Credit Union Place because there's a Caps game today. And there's a Cap game at 11 o'clock. So when we break for lunch at noon, you're going to go out these doors, you're going to go up to the rink, and you're going to go hug the wall and up to the oval where, if you've been here for meetings before, Potato Board meetings or soil and crop or whatever, you'll be familiar with that walk. If you're not exactly sure, follow the crowd. I would recommend staying, going in orderly fashion and getting up there and getting seated quickly so that we can get people through the line. Again, we have over 200 people here today, so getting through the line for lunch, we want to make that as efficient as possible. So follow the instructions of the staff up there at Red Shores. I think that's the housekeeping things for now. I'm going to call on Linda Ramsey from the PEI Department of Agriculture to come up and give some opening remarks.
Morning, everyone. On behalf of our organizing team from the PEI Department of Agriculture, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to today's Irrigation Information Session. Originally, when we started planning it, we invited Minister Thompson to bring greetings. As most of you probably know, Minister Thompson is not Minister Thompson, but Premier Thompson this morning. So he would love to be here and sends his regrets that he can't be. I don't know if anybody heard his remarks when he was sworn in on Friday, but the room was full of farmers, and pretty much his entire message was directed to farmers and to his passion to the industry. So I think we're pretty lucky to have him there right now. So it's also truly a privilege to have so many dedicated producers and industry professionals gathered here with the same shared commitment. So the goal today, what do we hope to do? Provide practical knowledge, innovative solutions, and actionable strategies that will help you optimize water use on your farm while maintaining your crop health and profitability. The day today, we hope, will also help you navigate the application process for irrigation on your farm. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to express our sincere thanks to the sponsors that made today happen. So the Federal Provincial Sustainable CAP Program, Cavendish Farms, 46 Ag, HJV Equipment, and Vandenbush Irrigation. Also really like to acknowledge the PEIDA board who expressed interest in kicking this event off, getting it started, and saw the need for us all to work together and share knowledge on this topic. So the turnout here today tells us the timing is good. Throughout the sessions this morning, you'll hear from provincial staff, so they'll provide some information on the permitting process and kind of how you work through that. Soil health plans, and also funding availability for irrigation on your farm. So this afternoon, we've brought in some irrigation experts who will share insights on modern irrigation technologies and some best practices. To me, the best session of the day is it's the last session, and it's when some of our own growers, who in my mind are the irrigation experts, will tell us what it's like on their farm. So thanks again for joining us. We look really forward to the day and a productive session. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. And I want to, I'll hopefully thank them again for the end of the day, but particularly with the Department of Agriculture, Kyra Stiles, Rodrigo Santos, and Kurtis Rooke were really instrumental in carrying the ball here, booking speakers and helping with booking the venue and putting the things together. So a big thank you to those folks as well. Next, I'd like to call up Greg Donald, General Manager of the PEI Potato Board. Greg has a few comments from the board he'd like to share.
Thank you very much, Ryan, and good morning, everyone. And and I want to thank Linda and certainly the folks at the Department of Agriculture and Environment, too, the folks who are here today for all their support. So it's always great to get together with so many other folks in our industry. But I know we're here today to specifically talk about irrigation. And this past summer, the drought we had reminded us how vulnerable we can be when rain doesn't come, and when it's hot, dry, windy, and how that can threaten our crops. It reinforced a very real and painful way the importance of planning wisely for water. Before we begin today's session, I'd like to say a few words about the value of water, land, and the responsibility that we all share to care for both. Water, of course, is essential to our industry. We all know that. It sustains our crops, it supports livestock, and underpins the ecosystems around us. But longer dry spells, we're getting heavier rains, unpredictable weather like yesterday, excuse me, mean that water is no longer something that we can take for granted. These pressures are pushing us to think more carefully about how we manage this resource, not just for today, but for the long-term health of our farms and our communities. And we all know that irrigation is just one tool in the toolbox. And I know collectively you have all been working hard on investing in drought-tolerant varieties to help improving soil health, to increase water holding capacity, reducing tillage, and adopting practices that help land retain moisture. These approaches work together, and healthy soils reduce irrigation needs, and irrigation supports productive soils. At the same time, we all know that irrigation comes at a high cost. It's expensive, and the equipment, the power, the monitoring, and anybody that's irrigating know it takes a lot of time. And deciding to irrigate or upgrade systems is a major financial commitment, and responsible water use must also consider affordability and fairness. So as we gather today, I thought I'd take a few moments and highlight a few guiding principles that can help shape how PEI approaches irrigation in a balanced and sustainable way. I know you folks know all these principles, but maybe you could think about them as we go through the agenda of the session today and as well. So the first guiding principle I'll mention is stewardship. Water is a shared resource, and stewardship means planning carefully, minimizing waste, and protecting the natural systems that depend on it. Second is science and innovation. Reliable data on groundwater, climate, soil, and crop needs allow us to use water more efficiently and cost effectively. New technologies can reduce waste and long-term costs. The third principle I thought I'd mention is cooperation. Effective water management requires cooperation among farmers, government, industry groups, watershed groups, and communities with policies that reflect both environmental and economic realities. Fourth, long-term thinking. Irrigation decisions made today have consequences for decades. Responsible planning must consider both water sustainability and the financial sustainability of our farms. And finally, respect for the land. Water management is inseparable from soil health, watershed protection, and ecosystem care. Doing things right helps protect the island's water supply and our agricultural future. So as you consider getting into irrigation or expanding existing systems, I encourage you to keep these principles in mind, and throughout today, they can help guide decisions that support production while protecting the long-term viability of your farms and our shared water resources. So thank you for being part of today's session. I look forward to the discussions and looking forward to working together for our farming resiliency, our competitiveness, and rooted in responsible water use. So, and also, last thing I'll add is, I know Kendra's been helping us work on something. I'm going to send it out before the end of the week that encourage you. You know, there's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of, but there's folks in the public that are concerned about water use, and encourage you to communicate to your friends, family, neighbors, and in your communities the commitment that we have to ensuring that we are doing this, going to do this. It has to be done responsibly. So we're going to pass something out before the end of the week to help with that, maybe a Q&A and some information that might help you do that. And I'll just end by saying again, big thanks to the PEIDA board, Ryan Barrett, who's one of the leading organizers, Kyra Stiles, Rodrigo Santos, Kurtis Rooke, the folks at the Department of Ag, the folks at the Department of Environment, all the speakers that came near and far, the contributors, and again our sponsors. And I know you can help, or they help us, we'll help support them too. So with that, thanks for everyone coming together, and have a great day. Thank you.
Okie doke. I think you took my notes. Thank you. All right, well, we're going to kick this off here. So our first presentation of the morning is on groundwater exploration and the water withdrawal permit process. And coming up to speak with us, we have Sean Ledgerwood and Ching Lee with the PEI Department of Environment, Energy, and Climate Action. Sean is the manager of the Water and Air Monitoring section of the PEI Department of Environment. This section is responsible for surface and groundwater monitoring, air monitoring, pesticide monitoring and licensing, surface and groundwater allocation, and the shellfish monitoring program. Sean received an MSc from the University of Toronto in Environmental Studies and has worked with the department for over 24 years in a number of various roles. And Ching Lee is a hydrogeologist with the PEI Department of Environment, Energy, and Climate Action. Ching has a MSc in hydrogeology from the University of Waterloo and over 26 years experience working in hydrogeology in the areas of groundwater and surface water modeling, water resource, and contaminant hydrogeology. So Sean and Ching, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. To start, Chin is up here with me, and he'll more be answering questions afterwards. The real brains of the operation is Chin and Ahmed Badi there. They're the ones that deal with the permits, so they'll probably be answering the tough questions. But anyway, I will start here. I assume I just hit that? Okay. Start off, thanks a lot for having us. Couple of 2 or 3 months ago, as we're getting a lot of permits in, we're kind of wondering how we're going to get the word out of how this process works. And we're trying to think of, well, do we talk to everybody? We send out newsletters. But then this came along, so it's great to be able to get this many people get the word across of what this process is. And I'll apologize up front. Pretty text heavy, more text than I'm usually doing a presentation, but there's quite a bit of information here and want to get it out. And I sent this presentation to Kyra as a PDF if people want it afterwards. So to start off, just a couple things. As I go through, just a few acronyms. GWEP, I use that just to shorten in the presentation. Groundwater Extraction Permit. WWP is Water Withdrawal Permit. And when I refer to departments, Environment. And Ryan, just keep me on time here. You know, throw stuff at me, whatever. So I've set this up. You can see the little bar down the left side, just sort of the step process that I'm going to go through, try to make this pretty straightforward and get a lot of information out to you. So when's a permit required? So there's several scenarios. The first one is high capacity well. Everybody knows high capacity well. That's what a lot of people are here about today, used with irrigation. And that's over 50 imperial gallons per minute. When you want an irrigation well, a high-capacity well, you need both the groundwater exploration and the water withdrawal permit. So it's a two-step process. Second one is new low-capacity well, and that's between 3.8 gallons, imperial gallons per minute, up to 50. The other one that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know about is existing low-capacity wells. The Water Act came in 2021, and with that, it brought a bunch of things that are requirements. And one of them is low-capacity wells that didn't need a permit before, if you're using it for irrigation, is going to need that as of June this coming year in 2026. So there's a bunch of low-capacity wells. I don't know if we know where all of them are, Chin. Most of them probably, right? Yeah. But those will require permits if you're using it for irrigation. But they only require the water withdrawal permit because they're already installed. Fourth one I have on the list here is surface water extraction, and that's, again, over 3.8 imperial gallons per minute, only the wastewater or water withdrawal permit. But I'm not going to focus too much on that today. We're kind of getting away from that a little bit. We can talk about it in the question period if people have questions, but more focusing on the high capacity wells today. So I'll start off groundwater exploration permit. It only gives you the permission to drill the well. It doesn't give you the permission to actually withdraw water from it. So as I talked about a little bit, this is the first step of a two-step process if you want a high capacity well. As I say, it's not permission to use production as a production well, and you've got 1 year to drill the well, get the information into us, and apply for the next part, which is the water withdrawal permit. You can have a renewal for past the year, but the Water Act only allows for one renewal. So it's a very short time period here. So how do you do it? There's a link there, an application online. It's $50 per well, so not very expensive. Now, the next part I put down is, when do you expect to hear back? How long does it take us to assess? Normally, you know, a little 3, 4, 5 weeks, depending like that. But I thought I should have put the asterisk much bigger than this, because we've got over 100 applications since the summer. And that in perspective, we have about 60 high-capacity wells right now in all of PEI for irrigation. So, we're well more than doubling what we've already got. So it's going to take us a lot of time to get through this. Some of them, as we go through, you'll see are quite easy. Not a lot of assessment needed with it. Some of them in higher production areas where there's more wells is going to take longer. Now, I've pointed out Chin and Ahmed, they're your best friends. Call them, talk to them beforehand, tell them what you're doing. Any of the process you're not sure of, don't just send in an application and say, well, I think I have it right. Call them and work through it. They're there to do that, so please do. So some information to consider when you're looking at, okay, I want to put a high-capacity well in for irrigation. Here's some things to think about. So generally, you want to keep them away from residential wells, and I'll tell you why. I think it's in the next couple of slides. But you want to keep it at least 300 meters away because the high-capacity well can affect wells that are close. So try to keep a distance. Now, these are general numbers, just when you're kind of planning, think, okay, there's a residence right beside it. Well, maybe I got to move the well somewhere else. Distance to other high-capacity wells. You want to be quite a ways away because you're pulling so much water. You want to make sure they're a good distance away, about 600 meters. And wetlands and streams, about 300. Now, these are all, as I say, just estimations, things to consider. When we actually look at the assessment, those numbers can vary up and down. So I talked about low-capacity wells, and I just wanted to kind of throw this in here for you guys. If you're looking at a low-capacity well, you don't need the groundwater exploration permit, but you run a risk if you don't come and talk to us first. You really want to make sure you're putting it in the right spot, because if a low-capacity well is put in the wrong spot and then somebody comes for water withdrawal permit, if it's not in a good spot, we could deny that, and you don't want to waste the money on the well. So, if you're looking at a low-capacity well, again, talk to these two guys. So I said a couple slides ago, sort of distances. Here's the reason. You can see the graphic there. You can see that well pulls water from everywhere and quite a distance away, right, up to almost a kilometer, right, at small amounts, but, 500 meters, sorry. So it can pull from quite a distance away. So you can see this one is pulling water from different areas, and it's making that cone depression. So a well that's going to be close to that cone can run the risk of going dry because the water is pulled away from it. So that's why we're trying to keep things away. Also, if you have that well too close to the stream, it'll pull water from the stream. And that's exactly what we don't want to do. That's one of the things our mandate is, to protect streams, the environment. So keeping those wells a good distance away, proper distance, is really important. Anything else I should say there, Chin?
No.
No? Okay. So when we're talking about protecting the environment, you don't need to know this, but I put it up here just as the science behind it. The Water Act actually says cumulative effect, this is an unacceptable adverse effect. The cumulative effect of on a watershed, so think of a whole watershed, not just a little area you're talking about, from all sources within the watershed result in the reduction of water flow in any watercourse or wetland in the watershed by an amount greater than the amount equal to 35% of the mean base flow in the watercourse or wetland during August and September. Quite a mouthful. You don't need to know that. These guys have the science. You just have to know that when we're talking Water Act and what we're trying to protect, this is the calculation that we have to abide by. It's in law. We don't have a choice. The Water Act says this is what we have to keep below or keep above. So that's kind of what our Bible is. So again, you guys don't have to know that. We'll take care of all that, but know that that's what the background history is. So when we get to assess these water exploration permits, applications, what do we do as a department? Well, there's a few things. We look at the full watershed, but generally we look at the full watershed, but then we zoom in on what we call a subcatchment, is a portion of that watershed. Basically, a portion of the stream branches off, and that area is what we look at. So we do groundwater modeling, and that's way above my head, but these guys can do it, of looking at how much water we expect in the future, how much water is coming, how much is taken out from different sources. So we look at all that, and they actually run it through a program that says, okay, here's what's available. We look at stream flow monitoring. The federal government has stream flow stations. We have stations. We look at that, and that gives us an indication what the streams are doing. We look at existing wells in the area, how many wells there are in the area, and how much they expect to pull, how much allocation they have, and our assumptions when we do the modeling. High capacity well is 150 imperial gallons per minute, and low capacity is 50. Just math thing. And we also send it to our partners in department, what's their department?
IRS, Indigenous Relations Secretary.
Right, Indigenous Relations Secretariat. And we send it to them because they look at the area and kind of make a determination, okay, is this where you could find an artifact? Is it something that we should be looking at? Generally, for a well, it's such a small footprint, we haven't had much, but there's always that possibility. So we send it there just to say, okay, is this an area that we should be concerned about, that we have to look at closer? So when I talked about watershed, I'll point, but you can see that I think this is a Wilmot watershed, and you can see down in the left-hand corner, there's a little portion that's kind of outlined in purple. So although we look at the full watershed, we start zooming in an area like that, and you can see there's already wells there, there's a couple of applications, it's scattered all over the place. We look at that and say, okay, how much is this withdrawing? There's applications out there, how much do we expect that's going to be, and how does that affect the stream? And I'll give a bit of an assessment here based on that last map. So through our modeling and Chin and Ahmed's modeling, they look at it, and the entire water available to that watershed, based on that 35% value that I showed, is 15,500 imperial gallons per minute. So you can see the chart below, there's already a bunch of wells there, and there's some high capacity wells, there's high capacity well groundwater exploration permits out there. Those are ones that could turn into an actual production well, and low capacity wells. So we total all that up, and the balance available in that area is only 189 imperial gallons per minute. So if you remember the math that I was telling you, that's about one high capacity well left. And then by law, we can't issue any more. We'll talk a little bit about that allocation process later, but that's kind of where we're at, how we determine it. And I assume, Ryan, we're going to wait questions till the end? Okay. Okay, so when we look at this, there's also it's actually the water withdrawal regs, but under the Water Act, priority of uses. So when we look at that, there's actually priority we have to look at. Fire suppression is first. It's always given priority. So if there's something needed for that, that gets first shot at it. Second is domestic wells or municipal wells systems. And then third, down at the bottom, industry, farms, all that sort of thing. Irrigation wells falls in that bottom section. And I'll show you an example of this in a minute. Right here. So when I talk about that priority of use, we'll look at a map like this, and this is Victoria, and you can see down the bottom right-hand corner, there's the area, and there's some white lines showing kind of the influence of water that municipality can pull. So we have to look at this and say, okay, Victoria, is that a community? And this is just fictional, but an example that we can show you. We have to look at, okay, the town is using water, Are they expected to expand in the future? Are they going to need more water in the future? If we have a reasonable thought that they will, we have to make sure we save enough water for that, because that's a higher priority than industry. So in this particular case, you can see two triangles that could be permits or requests to put a well in. If you guys came to us with that and said, okay, I want to put 2 wells right there, we would look at that and say, okay, that's really close to the municipality, probably too close for covering off the Water Act. Where could we move that's a little more out of the influence of Victoria that would still be safe, give them enough water, and still give you something? So in this particular case, those little black triangles, maybe you move them north a bit. Now, that's not always possible, but these are the sort of things that why we like to talk to you first, is where we can have these discussions and say, that's too close, not going to be able to do that, but if we move 500 meters northwest, maybe that's doable. So that's where we want to have these discussions. Still in this little green box on the left, still in the department assessment, quite a few things we do. We'll do a field visit. So the staff, mostly Jen and Ahmed, will go out, look at the exact locations that's proposed, look at the area, see if there's surrounding wells. We know most of them, but you never know until you go out and look. See the surrounding residences, see the water courses in the area. At this point, this is where we like to discuss this with the applicant, especially if it's in an area that's got a lot of wells already. We want to have that discussion and say, okay, what can you live with here? Where can you move? Like if you're proposing it right beside the stream, which is quite common because that's the edge of the field a lot of times, where could we move that's farther away so it protects the stream more? So we discuss with the applicant, and it could move the proposed well location. Because of that, some of these never actually go to the next step. You look at the application, various reasons, and I'll get in that another slide, of why these never go. And Chin, I think you said to me one time, almost half of them never go to the next step?
Yeah, more than half.
More than half don't actually proceed to the next step for a variety of reasons. So I'm looking at our little flow chart here. We're on to the next one. You've got the exploration permit. What's the next step? Now you have to go drill the well. And again, I'm going to keep harping on this. You're going to drill a well, but it's only giving you the ability to drill a well, not to pull water from it for irrigation purposes. So the well driller comes out. They're going to submit a well record to us. They're going to do pumping tests and water quality sampling. All that has to come to us, and that's going to be part of the next application. When you go out there and drill the well, there's a variety of reasons, again, at this step where it may not be producing enough to be viable for high-capacity well, may not meet water quality, could be saltwater intrusion, it could be a variety of reasons. So all that information comes to us and make that determination. One thing you have to do is if it doesn't proceed to the next step, you have to decommission the well. So that means filling it so it can't be used again. So we're on to the next step. You've drilled the well, you got the information from the well driller. They've sent some of it directly to us, some of it you have to send us. The next step, the second step in this process, is the water withdrawal permit application, link here. You have to provide with the application the driller's report. They're going to send a variety of information with it. You can read it all there. They have to send a water quality report, the pumping schedule and the pumping rates, what they got when they were doing the pumping on site, and that gives us an idea of, is this a viable well or not? And it gives you an idea too. Now here's some steps that people may not know about. These are relatively new, brought in with the Water Act, but these are now requirements of all high-capacity wells, whether you have a new one or an existing one. So people out there that have existing high-capacity wells, some of this applies to you too, so don't zone out. First one is drought contingency plan. I'm going to get into that a little bit more. Second thing for a new one is soil health improvement plan, and Morgan, I didn't see her here yet, but she's somewhere. Oh, there's Morgan down there. She's going to talk all about that up next, so I won't say anything more than it's required for this part of this process. And then another fee. This time it's more expensive because you're getting into an actual production well, and it's $2,000 a well for up to 5 years. There's reasons why it can be less than that. Those are a little more detailed, and you can talk to Chin about that. But if it's less, we prorate that. And after the 5 years, or up to 5 years, there's a renewal fee, but it's only half of what it was to start. So, what is a drought contingency plan? Well, I've got a couple copies here. I'll just leave them up front, but it's online. It's only 10 pages. It's not a lot. But basically, and the link is down at the bottom, it's a plan that describes what you can do to reduce water in times of drought. And of course, why a lot of you are here this year is because we had such a dry summer. So you have to say a bunch of varying things in it, in this plan. It's a written report that you have to submit to us with the application. You have to tell us when the plan would be implemented. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but it should be in there. And in the end, if we're going to say that plans have to be enacted, we're probably, as a department, going to send out notices to everybody and say, hey, now's the time. You got to enact your plan. But you guys should be aware enough to know that that's coming. And you know when there's a drought, you know that, hey, it's getting dry. We got to be prepared that this might happen. You have to describe what the actions will be taken, and I quite assume you guys will start talking to each other, and the first few people will make one, and they're all pretty much going to be the same. There'll be a little variation depending on the geography and that sort of thing, but I expect a lot of the plans are going to be very, very similar. Could be only irrigating at night, not irrigating until the soil moisture is less. Could be a variety of things. That's up to you guys to try to look at your farm and say, okay, what makes sense? What can we do? What are we going to do when this has to be enacted? You have to tell us what the expected water reductions would be. So are you going to say, I'm going to reduce 10% or in gallons? What would you rather, Chin? Gallons or percentage of what you use?
Yeah, normally we target for the 20% reduction in drought.
Yeah, so we're looking, as a guiding factor, 20% sort of range. That can move up and down. That's just an idea right now, but it gives you kind of a shot to look at. You also have to talk about if you're going to coordinate with others. Now, sometimes people share wells, or you're in areas that's a bunch of wells in the area. If there's coordination, you have to tell us about that too. And I expect you guys will start talking to each other and sort of create plans with each other. This is in that document that I showed, and it's basically showing these are the categories, and this is a template, fillable template. I expect for high capacity wells, for irrigation, you're only going to be a couple pages like this. You're filling out these sections and saying, this is what I'm going to do. Some of the larger water users, like municipalities or large industry, they have to create these too. It's not just irrigators. Anybody with a high capacity well. So I expect municipalities are going to have a much more intense and more complicated, more intricate plan than irrigators. But you do have to have the information, and that's just a template showing the categories that you have to provide us with. And again, these two guys can help you. So one of the things in our irrigation strategy, it talks about the Canadian Drought Monitor, and this is a product that the Department of Federal Agriculture puts out, and it's a map that's created once a month, and once a month is not great for us because a lot of things can happen in PEI within a month, but it shows when all parts of the country are under extreme drought. And you can see the different categories below. And the one to look at is the red, the D3, extreme drought. When it hits extreme drought, that's when we start looking at, okay, we have to pay real close attention to the water table and say, is it time to start reducing water now? Doesn't mean we will, because if you look at this, this is August and September of this year. Both months were in extreme drought. Even though we're in extreme drought, Chin and Ahmed were looking at the water table, we're watching very closely. We did not tell people to reduce their water usage. Now, 2 or 3 summers in a row like that, yes, it probably would. So just because this is showing extreme doesn't necessarily mean we're at the point that we have to reduce, but it's a really strong indication that we're really close. So that's one of the tools we use. Then we look at the water table, like I said. We look at streams, all the data that we have. That's when we start making determinations. And we can say just certain watersheds or the whole island. It will depend on a million different things that year. Talked about this a little bit already, but if people out here have low capacity wells that weren't permitted before, they have to be permitted now and by June this year. And all the wells have to be the high capacity wells by June this year too, even if previous ones or, well, previous wells that are in production now have to be permitted by June 26th. We'll start to assess each one. So again, we're getting to the point of, how am I doing for time? Okay. We're at the little flowchart point now that we're back to the department assessing something. So we're now assessing your water withdrawal permit application. So we're going to look at the drought contingency plan. We're going to confirm with Morgan that the SHIP plan is created and valid and everything's good there. We don't actually see them. Morgan just tells us that, yes, they have SHIP plan. It's valid. Everything's good. We review the pumping information. Again, for up to 5 years we can issue. And again with the asterisks, 48 weeks, but we've got over 100 applications and growing. So that can be extended, especially if you're in areas that are a little more populated with wells. So at that point, you get the water withdrawal permit. Now you can actually withdraw water from the well. You're not done yet, though. There is reporting that's required with that. So you have to record daily water usage and submit to the department by the end of the irrigation season to us. Email, most people email it, I think, right?
Yes.
But you can fax it, but most people are using email now. And this year we will be auditing. We will be going out to wells, looking to see that records match up. So that will be random, just looking at making sure people have water meters on them, that they're working properly, they're reporting the way it's supposed to, all that sort of thing. So that's kind of the end of that process, but there's a few more slides I want to talk about, and it'll probably generate questions that you're probably asking, thinking in your mind already. The water registry, PEI water registry, shows a lot of water information. For example, I just pulled this up. These are the high capacity wells for irrigation on PEI right now. Now, we only update this once every 6 months or every year, so that wouldn't be all of them, but that's the majority of them, right, Jen? Yeah. So that's showing 63. There's probably more than that now. But it's the takeaway from here is you can see where most of them are concentrated, right in the farming area, right? So when we have applications in an area that, like I showed you the example of the Wilmot watershed, where you're almost at capacity, and as I said, that's based on the science and the requirement of the Water Act. These are the areas that are nearing or at capacity for water allocation. Now, even within these watersheds, some small catchments still may have some allocation left, but these are the ones where if you're looking for water there and we're reaching that limit, that's where we have to figure out, okay, now what do we do? There's more users than water available, right? And we're hit the capacity. There's not that many of them on the island. Unfortunately, of course, they're concentrated in the area where a lot of the farming is. So there's Wilmot, Dunk, Barbara Waite, Indian River, some around Charlottetown, up around Surrey too, some small areas. But you can see the wide majority of PEI doesn't have a problem with allocation, just a few spots. So what happens in that case? Well, when you're getting to a point where there's no allocation left in the watershed, we're at the point that, and this is new for us because we haven't had this issue until now, until this summer. We're still working on that, so we're kind of pausing some of those applications and trying to figure out internally what is the best way. The Water Act gives us some ideas. There's some points in there that says you have to share water equally. You know, how do we do that? How do you share water equally if there's more users than water? So those are the discussions we're having, and I'm sure we'll be having them with you guys. So just keep in mind that in areas like that, we're probably in a pause of not applying or approving permits until we figure that out. And our 3 contacts, but again, you'll probably be contacting these 2 guys other than myself. So that leaves us with half an hour of questions. I don't know how you want to do that, Ryan?
So, yeah, we have lots of time for questions. If you have a question, I would prefer, if possible, there's a mic here, there's a mic there. Do we have another traveling mic by any chance? No, okay, so we have these 2 mics. If you want to go to a mic and ask a question, or if you have a loud voice and I can repeat it, we'll do that as well. The main reason for speaking to the mics, we are recording these sessions. By recording them, we'll have the audio on there as well for if someone with your team wasn't able to come today or you want to go back and watch this later. So, who has questions at this point? Krista?
Good morning, Sean. In one of your slides, you showed the gallons available, and it was some were for the wells, but they weren't being drilled. Yeah, that one. No, back, sorry. One more. There you go. So it says total permitted water. Your WWPs count in that total. What happens if a person doesn't actually drill the well?
Well,
Or pull from the well, sorry.
yeah, so we talked about many of them not going forward. In that case, the allocation would go back to the next user, right? So it would be taken off because if it's not a production well, it's not going to be used. But we can't over-allocate thinking that some of these might drop off. So if they're in the queue, you've got an expiration permit, it's only valid for a year. If after that year, it's not going forward, the well's decommissioned, that 150 is put back into the allocation. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that properly?
Yeah, so that's where I wanted to go with this. So you have 1 year to decide if you're ever going to pull water from that well, essentially.
Yes. It can be renewed, but only one time. And the renewal is another year, is it, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be a
So 2
potential
years.
2, but that renewal would have to have a good reason, not just because I'm sitting on it and I don't have time, or, it has to be because winter came, or, a valid reason, I guess.
Okay, and the only reason I'm bringing this up because you hear people saying we should drill a well while we can. Whether we use it or not is another,
Yep.
we'll decide. But you're saying there's only literally 1, possibly 2 with good reason, years till you would have to pull water from that well,
Yeah.
or that allocation goes back
Well,
into the hopper.
It's more to get the water withdrawal permit.
Right.
So you can get that water withdrawal permit and sit on it, which we don't want to see, but that's potentially somebody could do that. And that's what we're hoping isn't happening now with the influx of all the applications. We're hoping it's not people saying, well, I want to get this in case. Like we're hoping that these are valid applications that, yes, I am planning on irrigating next year. Now, not every year you irrigate, I understand that, right? But the intention would be that this is a valid application that I'm truly going to be irrigating when needed.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Hans?
You talk about the watershed availability. So if I have a high-capacity well and you're giving priority to residential uses?
It's in the assessment process that we're doing that. So like I showed Victoria, we're not going to issue a whole bunch of wells that maxes out that watershed knowing that Victoria is going to expand, or Charlottetown, or whatever site, right?
So if I had a high-capacity well, say outside Cornwall, and somebody built, or 100 houses went up around me, do I lose my?
We haven't come to that situation yet, but under the Water Act, that could be.
That could happen?
Could be a possibility if you got crazy expansion and the city needed more water. The Water Act is showing that list of priorities, right? We'd have to look at it at the time, but
You wouldn't be given priority if you had that well already?
we'd have to look at it. I mean, it's not a black and white answer, unfortunately. It'd be very gray of what's going on at the time, how much is needed, where can Cornwall get their water, can they go to a different watershed? Like Charlottetown does that now. They pull water from a different watershed. Is that an option? That would be a last case scenario, I would think.
Okay, another question. Watershed availability. You talked, I forget the number you used, about if the stream dropped down. What if you are in coastal watershed?
In what way do you mean?
Say you're in the South Shore, along the South Shore. It's not like the West River watershed. You don't have to worry about streams dropping down.
If it's like yes, there are some, Chin, you might be better. Yeah, you take that. Come up to the mic. Come up to the mic.
Oh yeah, sorry, could be difficult to hear me. So, yeah, a couple of things also mentioned here. Yeah, so close to shore watershed or small catchments, if no stream there, we have to calculate water budget first, and second thing, consider salt water intrusion in some residential wells in that area. So there is a case-by-case assessment. In every different area in PEI, that they have different salt water intrusion potential. South Shore have higher potential than North Shore in regard the salt water intrusion. So that's the reason if anybody apply for water exploration permit, groundwater exploration permit to me, then no, I always request at least 100 meters keep away from the soil line. And some area high potential, say for example Victoria area, we very difficult to make a decision on that. Have to do further assessment because that area have high potential salt water intrusion and also have a lot of residential cottages in that area. So, and that a lot of works we have to put it in. We investigate that situation. Okay, water budget is first thing. If we estimate how much we charge and available to high capacity well in all the residential area. So make sure environment is protected and at the same time provide enough water for agriculture irrigation. I also add your first question is for water availability. I forgot exactly what was your question. Could you repeat that?
An existing well maybe close to a municipality, and
Oh, yeah,
if
yeah.
it
Okay,
was a
go for it.
priority of
Priority,
existing well
yeah.
versus
Yeah, so that also case by case analysis. We are for potential development area, it's challenging for us because we don't know that city is going to be developed like a bigger development in certain area. We did talk to ask City of Charlottetown, Cornwall, Stratford, which area is you want to develop the future well feed, and which area is going to be have much more development. But we more, if you in certain area, no existing house there, if the water budget allow, normally we can approve the high capacity well, because when you go high capacity well coming first, when later the new house built up, they could drill well need to be deeper than normal, they still can get water. So that's the reason we keep certain, most careful is keep setback distance 300 meters away, I would comment from any existing well to make it, this is based on our long-term experience, research, and another pumping testing experience on this 300 meters can safeguard mostly domestic well, okay?
Should building permits be only granted if there's water available?
Building permit kind of this water available, not on
Or there,
in
you
that
talk about a
condition.
water budget, but should that not apply to residential as well?
And normally in PEI, they do have, most of the house can have fresh water. There's water available kind of different, they do send us for the comment, but it's a little bit complicated, more beyond water availability. For example, some people want to build a house just ocean front. We recommend that, we suggestion them here no fresh water available, but somebody still want to build a house. He say I can use bottled water, ship in, no problem at all. People want to build a house there, so we try to satisfy drinking water for every house, but I don't think it's a condition on for subdivision.
And just
Okay,
one last comment for you, Hans. This process that I'm talking about today is trying to get away from having issues like that. So we're trying to predict what a municipality or a large water user will need so that we don't run into those situations in the future. Now, things happen, you never know, but the whole point is assessing, okay, let's not put a well close to a municipality that might expand, if that makes sense. And also, just commenting on Chin's, when you're talking a household, when you're talking water budget, an individual household really is so insignificant because most of the water that they withdraw, they actually put back in, either through a septic tank or that sort of thing. So it doesn't really show up on that water budget. They're kind of a net zero. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Thank you.
And I would think this may be something that has to get addressed in a new land use act or a land use plan or something like that. So, Will?
Yeah, just going kind of on my, what was the question, more on timeline. From the time you get the exploration permit to the water withdrawal permit, if everything goes well with all the pressure that's going on, what kind of a time frame would we look at?
It really depends on the area. So if you're...
In an area that's not...
Yeah, so get back to that area. If you're in one of the areas that isn't stressed, like with water allocation, it's pretty quick. These guys move pretty quick. Now, we've got a lot of applications now, but we've got the winter to go through them, right? So we're hoping to get through those by the spring, right? Yeah. So, the exploration permit, you're talking weeks sort of range to hear something back from us, but some of that is contacting back and forth with you, and then we give that application, then you have to go drill a well. So there's a time period there that you get a well driller, they have to do it, they have to do the pumping, they have to get all the information, then get it back to us. Then you apply for the next permit, which then we assess all the information, and that's probably quicker than the exploration, isn't it, Jin? Yeah. Because a lot of the work has been done up front. So, there's a lot of variation there because if you can't get a well driller for a month, that extends it out, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to move them as quick. So
Yeah,
all the
great.
ones that,
Thanks for clearing this all up. Yeah.
Yeah.
for all the information today, yeah, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Will. Scott?
In the presentation, you spoke to the 35% mean base flow. Does that mean, sorry for using the word twice, does that mean that you have a mean base flow for each watershed? And what's that based on?
Chin, you're probably a better one.
So yeah, many small watershed don't have real stream flow data, long-term stream flow data. We just prorated from it other watershed, say Dunk River or others, have long-term monitoring data.
So on the watersheds that are nearing allocation, you do have long-term data, or it's more of a model?
Yeah, we only have several long-term monitor data. When this is based on long-term, not just 1 year or couple years. So we have, say, Bear River, Dunk River, Withdrawal River, all these data, and depending on the location, say somewhere in Shirley, we could prorate the data by area from the Bear River's long-term monitor station. Because PEI's geology or hydrogeology quite similar in each all things down in one area. What the stream flow is or base flow is quite similar.
But the big areas like Wilmot and Dunk, we do have quite a bit of actual monitoring on those sites.
Yeah.
So the ones like Wilmot, Dunk, that are nearing the allocation, we do have stations on those sites, or those watersheds. So they're more direct data than some of the way far up west or somewhere that we don't have a station.
So on those, Sean, do you have, like, what's the length of the data that's been collected on those watersheds? Like, is it
Well, it
a few
varies.
years, or is it a couple
Some of
of
them are
decades?
decades. Some of them are decades, some of them
Okay.
are shorter term, some of them are just the summer. We've got a wide range of data, so it really depends which station you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We have still about 10 minutes or so. Any other questions? Okay, here, Robin?
At one point there, you were talking about I forget exactly how you called it, the drought mitigation survey or thing you had to fill out. One question there, if you were to use like a low water amount, like for example, drip irrigation or a low flow sprinkler system or something like that, would that be exempt from needing to fill that out, or would you need to do some sort of form for that as well?
You need this for everything. Now, we're still kind of working through some of those, and I would expect ones that are really low flow already may not have to with reduce as much. Would that be fair? But there would still mean everybody needs to reduce at some point if there's extreme drought.
Okay, yeah. And I had a second question there too, which I think adds on to the first question there, which you were saying you're trying to figure out residential areas are growing and branching out and what they're going to need for water. Is there anything on the flip side of that in high agricultural areas where we're reducing permits for residential structures and like apartment buildings that pull more water to allow that to stay for agriculture production?
I'm not sure if I'm getting your question right. I don't know if we're doing exactly what you say, but all the municipal systems, like the large water users, have to have the drought contingency plans as well. So if we're telling irrigators to reduce, we're telling the cities and the towns to reduce too. Now, are we doing that up front? A lot of the municipalities we're talking to are already starting to get into that already, but it's not something that we're saying you must do this.
No, I mean more for like new building and stuff like that. Like, are there irrigation, like watersheds or water tables that are allocated for just agricultural use as their number 2, or just it's always number 3?
It's always number 3.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
good to know.
It's right in the regulations, and we don't, now that they're written, we don't have any choice with that. We have to go by that.
Any other questions? Tobin?
Hi, everyone. Just a comment, I guess, on a few questions that came in the room here today, that it really exemplifies the importance of a land use plan with water use in the island, and how agriculture and land use planning in the future is going to work together, because obviously if we keep withdrawing water in agriculture areas and high use or high density residential come into rural areas where they need their own water system, it's going to start having impacts and many other ways too, right? Just residential near agriculture areas. And there's a lot of, I know it's not directly to Sean or Ching, but other people in the room, I know the Potato Board and Federation of Ag have been pushing for land use for a while, and I think it's just important to note that again. And Hans kind of started that with the great question at the start. So yeah, just a comment, I guess.
Thanks, Tobin. Any other comments, questions?
You talked about the residential water was going back into the ground where it was taken up out of. But if you look at Cornwall, there's huge well field just kind of on the northwest side of Cornwall, and all that waste eventually goes back into the West River through treatment. So what you said about it being a net effect is not.
He was talking about individual wells on an individual house versus a well field.
Yeah, but there's lots of farmland around Cornwall, right? And Summerside, and every municipality on PEI is expanding, it seems.
Yeah, well, yeah, when
I just want to know where the rights are, like
the rights,
the water rights. Like,
Yeah.
are we talking water rights, or are we just talking the farmers get whatever's left over?
well, I showed you the priority, right?
Yeah.
And that's in legislation. So if a municipality is looking for water, needs water, that gets higher priority in a permit process. If two permits come in at the same time, one's for municipality, residential drinking water, and one's for irrigation, and the watershed is nearing allocation limits, the municipality is going to get first dibs on the water. Right? That's the priority of when these applications come in.
And I'm not suggesting I have all the answers. I just
Yeah.
think it's something we need to talk about.
And Hans, it's a very gray area, right? I mean, we talk about individual cases, and, you know, a lot of times we have to look at individual cases, look at it, all the different aspects to that, and another one is going to be a little bit different. So I get the confusion, because it is a gray area.
And if I could just add one thing that is under the Water Act that we haven't talked about yet, and that hasn't gone into effect yet anywhere, is that under the Water Act, on a watershed basis, there is the ability to have additional planning, right? You know, in terms of water use in that watershed. So that may be down the road where we have to address some of these high-use watersheds, or where we bring together, you know, producers and municipalities and watershed groups and different people to try and maybe more accurately manage water in a watershed. And I think that's where we all are going to have to work together on that down the road too.
Yeah, and it's not that far down the road. We're working on that now. So that's coming very quickly.
Tobin?
Yeah, I'm just going to say one more thing, just specifically to Hans's situation that he talked about there. I understand, like, residential and fire suppression has priority over commercial industrial irrigation. But if the farmer is already there using that water with a water withdrawal permit, land use planning should not allow another, or have a discussion about other users coming in and using those water rights first. That's a hierarchy. It's two different things. One's, you know, throughout contingency of when water gets turned off, and we prioritize, you know, firefighting and potable water. And the other thing is prioritizing land use to not take away and impact other users, which may be a farmer first, or it may be a development first. Has to go both ways, I guess, is what I'm saying on the land use planning.
Yeah, and that's why I say it's very gray in areas. That is, you're right. Yeah.
Anybody else before we wrap this section up?
Okay. Last thing I'll say is Ahmed and Chin are here all day. We're going to be floating around, so if you have specific questions, you know, they're here today to talk to you if you want. And thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much, Sean and Chin. We'll keep things on track here. So next up, we're going to be talking about the aforementioned soil health improvement plans, or SHIP plans. And coming up to speak to us on that is Morgan MacNeil. Morgan is the soil health specialist at the PEI Department of Agriculture. She has a Master of Science degree in agriculture from Dalhousie University Faculty of Agriculture. She's a member, she's a professional agrologist here in PEI. She's worked with the department for the last 3 years, and before that, many of you would know her, she worked with me as a junior agronomist at the potato board. And we were always, we were very fortunate to have her at the board for 3 years, and now we're fortunate to have her working in the industry as a whole. So, you want to come up, Morgan?
Great. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. So today I'm going to be talking about the soil health improvement plans, and I'm hoping most of you in the room have heard about this program before. It is a fairly new service that we started offering in 2022, but I'll get into it and we'll discuss it further. So I just wanted to kind of open up and talk about soil health. We all know that this is a very important topic and one that has a lot of attention. We're really trying to look at building soil health and keep it very strong and sustainable for many generations to come. There's a very simplistic but complex definition here, looking at a reference from Doran and Zeus, 2000, and it's really looking at that interface of the physical, the biological, and the chemical aspects of a whole soil ecosystem. I just wanted to mention with soil health, we know there's a lot of benefits to building very healthy soils. When we look at our climate extremes with climate change, looking at more extremes with drought situations, looking at ways that we can conserve more water in our soils, that we can build more organic matter into our soils, and we can also look at making a lot of improvements on different indicators of soil, looking at ways that we can reduce our compaction levels, ways that we may be able to reduce inputs in some capacity, and then increase organic amendments that can help to really build those organic matter pools. So there's a lot of different examples, but these are just a few examples here. So as you know, the acronym for SHIP, it's the Soil Health Improvement Plan as the full title. And this service began in 2022, and it has been developed by the PEI Department of Agriculture. And it's really designed to help the farmers to assess the current state of soil health on their fields and looking at setting actions that we can improve soil health in the long term. In order to get a water withdrawal permit, you do need to have a SHIP in place for each field that you plan to be irrigating. And these SHIPs are really designed looking at soil health principles. So you are already very familiar with a lot of these topics and concepts, looking at keeping the ground covered with residues, looking at minimizing your tillage where you can, and like I said, having a lot of living biomass and living tissue on the fields. So this is just a photo that I took this summer when I was out in the fields. This is a buckwheat field and how it was being managed when it was being mowed down. And then over time, all the residue is going to be incorporated back into the soil. And this is going to help conserve the nutrients and add fertility and hopefully help build different organic amendments over time. I'm a very big fan of crop diversity and crop diversification, looking at ways that we can enhance your rotations, add more vegetative diversity to support biological soil health. These are photos I took this summer when I was out on various fields across PEI. We have some sorghum Sudan grass, some brown mustard, some peas, phacelia, and buckwheat as well. But they're just a few examples, and they have a lot of ecological benefits as well, such as for pollinators and other species. So I just wanted to talk briefly about some of the goals of SHIP. The big catchword is looking at improvement, how we can make improvements over time, looking at a baseline of where we're at currently, and how we can make it better over time. And a lot of this is looking at your best management practices, what you're currently doing, and ways that we can improve and enhance it in the future. So as Sean already talked about the SHIPs being a requirement for the water withdrawal permits, I just wanted to mention again that all agricultural irrigators on PEI that will be growing in soil are required to have these SHIPs applied for. If you have a new well for agricultural irrigation, if you are an existing water withdrawal permit holder, or if you have a surface water permit after 2022. And we would like to have all fields applied into the SHIP program by June 16th of 2026. I'm going to talk a bit more into the application process for SHIP, but the SHIPs will be valid for 5 years, and they'll be renewed every 5 years. If a producer does not have soil health results available at the time of application, I can issue 1-year SHIPs, but I will need soil health results before I can issue the full 5-year SHIP. So in terms of initiating the SHIP process, there's 2 ways that it can go. One route is if an agricultural irrigator is going to apply for a water withdrawal permit, they can reach out to me directly at the Department of Agriculture, and I will help you get enrolled in the SHIP program. The alternative option is if you speak to the Department of Environment, Energy, and Climate Action, they will notify me that you must apply to the SHIP program, and then I can get you enrolled that way as well. So with a soil health improvement plan, there are 3 main indicators that we look at in the assessment. The first one is done through a computer software modeling program. Short for, the acronym is RUSSEL, the Revised Universal Soil Loss Equation. And this is looking at soil loss modeling for your fields. And it's looking at the tons per acre per year of soil loss based on the measured slopes we look at. The second indicator is looking at what we call our soil conditioning index. And this is a unitless number between -1 and +1. And it's looking at how well the number is correlating with building organic matter in your soils. And the third indicator is looking at soil health testing results. So really asking that the farmers are willing to go take soil samples for each field that they are applying to SHIP. And then the results have to be sent in to myself so that I can do an assessment and then be able to review and monitor soil health over time. And I just wanted to mention this again. I know Sean already mentioned it, but with SHIP, we are not going to share any of your crop rotation information with the Department of Environment. So anything related to your management, it will not be shared with their department. We are only going to be sharing what we call our SHIP identification numbers, which is a number that we assign for each of your fields when you apply to the SHIP program. We will also share the PID numbers that you will be planning to irrigate, just for the purposes of ensuring they're applied, and field names if it applies, and as well the ship expiry dates. So some of the expiries will be 1 year, and in some cases they could be 5 years, or 1 year's later updated to 5 years. So we just have to keep that communication to know that they are active, so they're in place. So when I talk about the application requirements for SHIP, what we require is an application form that is filled out. We currently do not have the application form online, as we're making a few little tweaks and adjustments to it currently, but you can obtain it directly from myself. So you can reach out to me and I can email a copy to you. We also can visit on farm and give you paper copies and work on them together. Or you can fill it out and then scan it back to me. So we have multiple options to do that. And I'll discuss it in a little more detail shortly. On the application forms, we would like to know the property numbers that you plan to irrigate, not specifically the pumping site locations. So this is a little bit different from what environment we'll be looking at. But we really need to be knowing your field management practices, and we need to know one crop rotation moving forwards. So your going forward plans. And as I mentioned, we need recent soil health test results. So if at the time of application you have soil health results from an accredited lab that are within the last 2 years, we will accept those. But anything more than 2 years, we would rather you go take fresh soil samples. And I also am requesting at the time of soil sampling, if you haven't already done your sampling, we'd really like to see a GPS coordinate collected for each composite soil sample, because I'd like to put the coordinates directly into your SHIP management plans. And the value in doing this also, as I'll discuss shortly, is to renew your SHIP every 5 years. We ask that you do a re-soil sample. So if we have a coordinate for the area that you did your baseline sample, we have a coordinate to then give you at the time of follow-up sampling. So we want to make sure we're looking at results that are in roughly the same area of the field from the baseline to the follow-up later on. Otherwise, if you sample different parts of the field, we know soil is incredibly variable and a lot of variability across the field. So we want to make sure we compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. So with the soil sampling for SHIP, we typically recommend collecting one composite sample for a 30-acre field. So for example, if you had a 60-acre field that you wanted to apply to SHIP, you could do 2 composite samples and just indicate to me with a coordinate, sample A, sample B, or sample 1, sample 2, and then I will go from there and record everything. We have 2 labs that we accept the soil health results from. The main one in PEI as our analytical lab here in Charlottetown. When you do your sampling, it's recommended you take 2 bags of soil as part of your composite. So 1 bag you will submit for the S3, soil chemistry analysis, and then the second bag for the soil health package. We have 3 different soil health package options at the local lab. We call them SH1, SH2, and SH3. Ideally, the SH3 is our preferred package because it does include the available water capacity indicator, although our lab is currently facing quite a backlog with a lot of samples being submitted. So if you do submit for the SH2, we will accept results for that test at this time. And then the alternative lab is to go through A&L, and we would be asking for the SH Test 1. It's the complete soil health package, our closest equivalent. And again, if you do collect the GPS coordinates, you can just send them directly to me. If you have just like a handful of fields, you can just text them over to me. But if you have a lot of fields, it would be better to put them into an Excel spreadsheet and just email it to me, and then I'll be able to process it more efficiently. So I just wanted to make a few points about the application process for the soil health samples. I will show pictures of the forms in a moment, but I just want to be clear about the application process. When you go to submit your soil health samples to the lab, you will have one of 2 options. If you'd like a copy of the results to come directly to me when the results are available, I will need you to write the ship@gov.pe.ca email address on the soil sample submission form. because if you don't, I can't just request the results on your behalf. The alternative would be that you get the results first, and then you just send them to me once you receive them. So you have the option of either, but it's your decision. Either way, you'll have to send the results to me. So these are the application forms for the soil samples, for the soil analysis, the S3 package, and the soil health analysis. I've just circled those areas where it says copy to email. So that would be where you would have to write the ship email address if you want them to come directly to me. So you just want to make sure if you don't include that email, or you can put my email, that you send them to me once you get them. Because if you don't, there's going to be a longer lag getting your ship finished. And this is just an example of a rubric for the soil health analysis report. I just really want to make it clear that there is a difference between soil chemistry form and soil health form, and the two reports that you get are also different. So I just hope that these visuals will help to make it very clear. When we're talking about the soil health report, we're looking at a lot more indicators, not just your basic soil chemistry and your pH, but we're also looking at some of the biological and the physical metrics of soil health. So we're looking at indicators such as active carbon, soil respiration, your aggregate stability analysis, and your biological nitrogen availability. This is just a picture of the application form through A&L Labs for the soil health package analysis. And again, I just circled the SH test 1 at the bottom there. So that's the package that we're going to be requesting if you decide to go through their lab instead. I also just wanted to show some pictures of the application forms to apply to the SHIP program. So if you do contact me to get a paper copy of the application form, this is just part of the first page. And as I mentioned, if you would like to do the application process in person, I can come out on farm and we can do it together. Or you can always come by the office at 11 Kent Street in downtown Charlottetown, and we can set up a meeting in person there. Alternatively, if you receive it from me over email, you're welcome to just fill it out on your own and then send it back to me. And you can call at any point if you have any questions, if any questions are not clear or you just need clarification on anything. We just recently developed a survey option for the application process, and I thank a lot of my colleagues that are in the room that were very instrumental in helping us get this developed, such as Aaron, Kurtis, Tyler, and Josh, and Kyra. So thank you to them. And with this option, it gives us more opportunity to do the application process over video call potentially as another option, where we can have the screens open at the same time we do the call and run through the questions together, because there are different streams of questioning that you can answer, so it gives us more opportunity to catch any errors that might be made as you're working through it. But again, this option will be available. I can send you a link over email that you can do the process yourself, or again, if you'd like to do it in person, we can always meet and do it together. But you do need to reach out to me to get access to the link. And all the answers, any information that you provide in the survey is going to be kept very confidential, so it will not be shared outside our department. I just wanted to show a few pictures of some farm equipment and tillage and harvesting and seeding information, just to give some nice visuals. When we do our Russell analysis, we really look at the specific implements that are being used in the tillage process. So when you guys fill out the application form, we're able to give our best guess at what's actually happening in the field to accurately model your rotation and your soil loss rates. And again, these are just some more pictures that show some examples of different equipment. There can be quite a range, quite a variety across the island. And we know that we don't want to have excessive tillage because it does cause issues with soil aggregate stability. So we want to make sure that we're doing it as efficiently and effectively as possible. I just wanted to show a few pictures of templates for a 1-year versus a 5-year SHIP plan. They look very similar on the front page, but they will have different expiry dates. And as I should mention, they will all be expiring December 31st of whatever calendar year that would be. So based on the dates that we issue them, we will give you that full calendar year or 5 years, depending on that length of time. With the SHIP management plans, as I mentioned, we will be assigning a SHIP ID number that will be used for any identification purposes tied to that plan. And if you do receive a SHIP, it does not guarantee that you will get your water withdrawal permit, but you do need the SHIP to get your water withdrawal permit. And the dates of issuing the SHIPs and the water withdrawal permits may differ, but they both need to be active in place, and both are intended to be valid for the 5-year period if it is a high capacity well. The surface water permits are 1 year, but that's not our focus for today. And one other requirement I just wanted to mention, we have another program at our department, abbreviated as ACRA, which is known as the Agricultural Crop Rotation Act. And this is a program that trumps SHIP in a sense, in that if there's very short rotations, like 2 years, potatoes every 2nd year, or 2 and 5 year rotations, you need to have your fields active and enrolled in the ACRA program before you can have your SHIPs in place. So I would just caution you to make sure that if you do have short rotations or potatoes very close together in rotation, that you make sure your ACRAs are up to date before I can issue your SHIPs. And the ACRAs are also a longer 10-year program, so they are a little different from the SHIP program, which are also going to be valid for 5 years. I just wanted to provide a few examples of a few little pieces that you will see in a SHIP management plan. So these are just some examples of 2 maps from one field that would be an example of what we call our soil map, where we show the contours. We pick a slope that we'll measure as our representative slope for the plan. We will look at topography, and we will look to see where the yellow dots will be the GPS locations where the soil sampling was done. The map on the right is looking at our soil erosion features, or soil erosion control features. So if there are any farmable berms, waterways, grass filter strips, terraces that are already enrolled in another program, we will draw those into the plans and just ask that you maintain them in a good working order. And then we can also recommend additional features if we see areas that can further enhance soil health. And with the recommendations that we will make through SHIP, they are not required in all cases, and a lot of the time it's going to be open to discussion. So open to the possibility or alternative options if for some reason you're not able to do some of our recommendations. So as I mentioned, with the SHIP management plans, we will be reviewing your rotations to make recommendations for areas that you can consider enhancing soil health on the farm. Once I have a SHIP plan developed for each field, I will email them out to the clients, and the client needs to review it and then get back to me to let me know if they're happy with the plan. If there's any questions or room for improving it or adjusting it, we can have those conversations. And then once the client's happy with it, they need to sign off on the last page and send it back to me. And then I will also sign the plan and then send you back a fully signed copy to keep on file. As I mentioned, within a 5-year period, the client will have to then re-soil sample for the soil health analysis. And I will suggest dates in the plan as to when the soil sampling should be redone. And then at any point when the SHIP is active, if the client decides they need to change the rotation for any means, or there's any changes in the management, they just have to notify me, and then I will update the plan accordingly. and then I'll just have to send it out to be re-signed and reissued. But otherwise, there shouldn't be any issue there. Just making sure that you keep within the ACRA guidelines as well. I am a big fan of organic amendments, so I just love to show pictures of compost and manure and other sources like those. I know sometimes we're dealing with shortages on the island for some of these amendments, but I do know they're a great source of building organic matter in our soils. So it's one area and one recommendation I do make a lot of the time. So I just wanted to provide a few references from the presentation. And I wanted to leave it open for any questions that you may have about SHIP. Thank you.
Any questions for Morgan? About getting SHIP plans done or anything? Very comprehensive. If anybody has got a, did any research projects with me in the last couple of years, and you're looking at doing a SHIP plan, talk to me first, because I may already have some of your soil health testing done, so depending on the project. Any questions before we keep rolling? Oh, Kenny?
I have one, I guess. If you're in a 3 or 4 year crop rotation, why would you have to have a SHIP?
If you plan to irrigate your fields, then you will be required to apply to SHIP.
But what difference would that make, I guess, because if you were getting normal rainfall and rain, you wouldn't need a SHIP. So why would you need one for your adding water?
It's only if you're applying for a water withdrawal permit that you would need a SHIP.
Well, I understand why you're saying water withdrawal permit, but I'm putting water on the field. And if I got it through the rain, I don't need a SHIP. So why do I need one for adding water?
Them's the rules.
It's what, Ryan?
Them's the rules, Kenny.
Them's the rules.
No, neither I nor Morgan made the said rules. So
Well, somebody made them. Who made them?
talk to somebody further up at the Department of Environment. That's rules been around since they came out with the new rules on water extraction.
Okay.
And just because it's a 3-year rotation, I've seen lots of 3-year rotations that weren't building soil health. So like.
Oh, well, I can agree with that
So
statement, but I mean,
that's why they didn't want to tie it just to the rotation length. They wanted to say regardless of your rotation length, how are you managing your rotation? You're going to be sustainably managing water and your soil.
And
I think you're making a lot of work for a lot of us farmers that there's no need of for adding water.
I'll just also mention that you don't have to irrigate in order to be involved in SHIP. You're also welcome to apply if you're also just interested in building soil health in general. I would like to have an analysis done of those metrics. So it is open to all agricultural island producers, irregardless of irrigation.
I'm just going to repeat the question. So the question was, can Morgan relay what recommended changes what changes are being recommended, or what is coming back in these plans?
That's a great question. Thank you. So to talk in kind of a general term, like each one is going to be specific depending on the farm and the fields themselves. Although in terms of general recommendations, we will be looking at ways that we can build the soil organic matter levels if they are low in particular fields. So as I mentioned, suggestions looking at more organic amendments would be an example to try to build the organic matter over time. We look a lot at the tillage as well. So what type of implements are being used, how frequently they're being used, what time of the year they're being used, how intensive they're being used. So looking at ways that we can try to minimize soil disturbance and soil loss in cases where soil loss rates are exceeding, we have a threshold of 3 tons per acre per year. So if the rate is above 3, we need to find ways to get it lower. So it's a lot based on thresholds and on preset standards.
Any other questions?
Yeah, me again. First of all, I'd like to say I really respect all the work that you guys are doing, and I think there's a lot of good things going. I did want to add on, like, for example, what Kenny says. This is a lot of work for us, and especially coming off of a drought year with low prices, there isn't a whole lot of moving room for everybody. And in my case, personally would not be able to just take on this extra workload. Is there any avenues or ways that, like, if I were to hire on a new person or to look at somebody who would have the capability of assisting on the farm with this, like hiring on or through a program or whatever, is anything like that out there that could help us in a way?
Yes, that's a great question. And if you were to have other staff on the farm that were in a position to do the soil sampling for you, that is fine. And sometimes there's local representatives from different watershed groups that may be able to help. But as a government staff, we're not in a position to do it because we'd have to offer it out to all the farms, and we just don't have the capacity for that. So if it was something within your own farm or a local watershed connection, that might be all right.
But there is no existing program or funding aid if we were to hire specific people to do this.
Not that I'm aware of specifically.
Okay.
If you are proposing a project that also involves nitrogen management or cover cropping, and you wanted to get agronomy support to help you with soil sampling and things like that, you should maybe talk to the ladies at the Federation and see whether or not it might fit under an off-CAF project. And under off-CAF, you can get money towards agronomy services and some of that sort of stuff. So, and they'll be taking in more applications starting in April. So that might be an opportunity, as long as it also dovetails with some of those other things.
Yeah, it's just starting to get to the point where I need somebody to start filling out forms on the side. Awesome, thank you.
Anything else? All in, all done? All right, thanks very much, Morgan. All right, we'll keep moving right along. So our last presentation before lunch is we've broadly titled it Introduction to Irrigation on PEI. We wanted to keep it as broad as possible. And Kurtis is going to come up. So Kurtis is a soil and water conservation engineer in the Sustainable Ag section of the Department of Ag. His main focus is designing and implementing soil conservation work for producers and landowners across the province. In addition, Kurtis is the designated manure advisor for the province and one of the program advisors for the Ag Stewardship Program. And he's also sort of the go-to fellow in the department on questions around irrigation. So, I'll turn it over to you, Kurtis.
Alrighty. So, hello everyone. I'm Kurtis. I'm also freshly off wisdom teeth surgery, so if I'm slurring, it's not because I was drinking or anything. But anyway, so we put this presentation together here. Just kind of a little bit of everything, talking about funding, talking about an introduction to the afternoon, talking about some other permits, some more paperwork to fill out. But I figured if we have everyone here, we could kind of talk about it. So anyways, I'll get into it. So I guess why are we all here today? It's because the drought over the past few years, and you're here today to look at various irrigation systems and kind of decide on how you want to implement your irrigation on your farm, and it'll also depend on what kind of commodity and farm setup you want to use. So we'll be talking about drip irrigation, boom and reel, boom and gun, and pivot irrigation as well. So factors when considering irrigation. So Sean and Ching talked about this. Your factors to consider is water quality, So you want to look at desirable temperature, pH, presence of heavy metals, salts. You have your water quantity, so making sure you have sufficient water available, or if you need to drill another well, and then that takes the permitting process even longer because then you have to go apply for another well. And then you have the watershed limits that Sean talked about. And then finally, we also have the regulations and guidelines. So we got to look at groundwater exploration permits, water withdrawal permits, ships that Morgan just talked about. And then on top of this, we have the capital costs and labor, so the capital expense associated with that, which I'm also here to talk about today. So we have the operating costs, we have the power sources, whether or not you have three-phase or single-phase available, or if you need to get a generator. And then you have labor, because it all takes time. Like what Robin was saying, like you need to set up the systems, you need to maintenance them, you need to monitor them, you need to make sure they're not hitting any power poles, or that you're moving the pivots every couple days to get sufficient water. And then also winterizing systems, making sure you're not cracking the system over the winter. So benefits, we're all here because we understand the benefits. So increased crop yields. So you're not so dependent on the growing season because you're providing stability to the crop. So you're providing that water when the crop needs it, and you're providing the correct amount. And then it also provides like crop diversification, right? Like you don't really have to focus on drought-resistant potatoes or whatever drought-resistant varieties. You can kind of focus more on yield potential as well. So a little bit about what's going to go on in the afternoon is like what Ryan said. We'll have these 2 rooms here dedicated to pivot and boom irrigation. We have Evan and Darren here from out west. They're certainly knowledgeable enough, and they'll be kind of talking about an overview of pivots and booms, just to kind of lay the groundwork on the system itself and to get everyone familiar. I know some of you have irrigated for 20 years. Some of you are irrigating the first time next year. So we just want to make sure that everyone kind of understands the basics before we build from there. And then we'll be talking about pivot designs, layouts, pump and pipe sizing, winterizing systems, fertigation, and then Evan's going to talk more about the irrigation scheduling, monitoring, record keeping, and then also even about moving and anchoring pivots. And then on the far side there, we'll be talking about drip irrigation. We have Scott Anderson and Paul. They'll be talking, Scott will give like a general overview of drip irrigation and also provide some examples that they've done in the past. Paul will also be talking about drip irrigation strategies under water shortages, drip design, layouts, fertigation. Again, same thing as that kind of the pivots and booms. And then also winterizing the systems, because that's probably one of the most important things. So just to beat you over the head once more again on the irrigation flow process. So first you need to determine whether or not you require a low or high capacity well, or say if you have multiple low capacity wells, which I think Sean talked about, depending on how you want to apply. Several low high capacity wells would be considered a high capacity well, if I'm not mistaken. And then, so if you do require a high capacity well, to apply for that permit. And then in the middle of it, I would probably encourage, like what Morgan said, to apply for a SHIP as soon as possible, because those soil health results, they do take a while to get back. So I would encourage you to apply as soon as possible, and then that way we can kind of get the ball rolling so that those water withdrawal permits aren't held up by the SHIPs. And then you would apply for a water withdrawal permit, like what Sean and Ching said. And then I did add this tidbit in here. So installing your system and network of pipes, consult the Department of Transportation or Environment, depending if your pipelines are planning on crossing any wetlands, streams, or right-of-ways. I'll get into that a little bit about the next slide. So irrigation pipe under right-of-ways. So some of you have done this before, some of you haven't done it before. So I talked to Scott Morrison, he's the direct contact, and I know it's a lot of words up there, but I'll kind of work through it. So if you are looking to install irrigation pipe under right-of-ways, Scott Morrison is the contact. His email and number is there. He'll send you a project form application. You'll fill it out, send it back, and then there'll be a site assessment done by Department of Transportation just to make sure there's nothing weird and it's a suitable site. From there, there's kind of some internal minister approvals and other approvals to proceed, but you do need liability insurance, and you need to send that to the province, listing the province as a co-insurer. And then once you get your letter of permission, you need to sign a certified check or a bank draft to the Minister of Finance for about $1,000 per irrigation pipe. And then finally, once you get all that, you can install the pipe. After completion, you want to get a legal survey done, because the legal survey, that's how Department of Transportation determines for the permit. It's a per meter basis. So I think it's like $30 a meter. Typical right-of-way is 20 meters, so you're looking at about $600 for the permit. And then you need to send that legal survey to Department of Transportation. Afterwards, you enter into a license agreement with them. It's an open-ended one, so if you were to sell the land, that license agreement stays with whoever applied, so you would need to transfer that over. And then also, one thing I talked to Scott about is if you're doing it on rented land and if you're putting your irrigation pipe to rented land, they do require a letter of permission from that landowner, just to make sure that the landowner is aware of said procedure going on. Irrigation pipe through watercourse and wetlands. So to contact the watercourse alterations technician, Department of Environment, their email and phone number is there, and fill out a watercourse, wetland, and buffer zone activity permit. And myself or Tyler Wright can help you with that, so feel free to reach out to us. So now to talk about the funding and more paperwork to fill out, because I know you guys love that. So the funding is under the Agriculture Stewardship Program, and I'm the advisor for the irrigation, so I've probably talked to a lot of you on the phone, and this will probably be more of a refresher, or there may be some new material as well. So it's beneficial management practices for agri-environmental initiatives, and so these are some of the funding categories that we offer. I'll only be talking about water supply and management today, but I would like to note that if you do apply, we do require you to have an environmental farm plan, because it's an agri-environmental program, so it kind of makes sense to have an environmental farm plan. So a little bit about the funding. I'll just do all the water supply and management. So the first one is alternate livestock watering systems, 50% up to 10,000. Riparian fencing, so getting the cows out of the stream or the wetland, 50% up to 20,000. And then we also offer stream crossings for farm machinery and livestock. So we offer design as well. Tyler Wright is here. He can help you with the application and the design behind it, and then also the funding with 50% up to 25,000. And then I do the water use efficiency and water treatment. So if you needed to implement a new washing system that's more efficient for potatoes or whatnot, 50% up to 25,000. And then water treatment, if you drill a well and it has high levels and you want to treat it, we do offer 50% up to 25,000. So now time for the bread and butter of it is the 4.5 water supply and irrigation efficiency. So as many of you know, we made changes to this in November. We offer, it's kind of split into two categories. So one is farmstead water supply, and that's for on-farm water supply. So typically a lot of, if you're washing potatoes or if you're a dairy farm, you can apply for this. It's 50% up to 20,000, and that'll fund the well, power to the well, and then power to the barn. And then there's irrigation water supply and efficiency. So it's 50% up to 75,000, annually up to 150,000 for the life of the program. Now it's important to note the program runs till 2028. So that's March of 2028, so we're in our third fiscal year. So we technically, after this year, we still have 2 more years. So you don't necessarily have to do the 275s for this year and next year. You can kind of split it over the next 3 years for those of you that already applied. Eligible expenses include the purchase and installation of drip irrigation, fertigation equipment, monitoring equipment, underground pipe, wells, that includes exploratory wells too, electric pumps, and then also power to the well. So we won't fund it down the road because that's public, but we will fund it from the road to your well. Whether you want to go above or below, we will cover it. And then kind of like what Sean talked about, if you need to cap a well, we do offer funding for well water protection measures, 75% up to $10,000. So if your well doesn't work out, we will offer to help fund to decommission it. And then there's a lot of words up there, but just for those of you that haven't applied, pretty much our funding runs yearly from April 1st to March 31st, and then it resets every year. So you'll have to reapply April 1st. And typically it's been applied before you buy, so if you apply April 1st, all your eligible expenses have to be dated on or after April 1st. Now, since we made changes to the irrigation funding this year, we are going retroactive back to April 1st to allow people who did irrigation work over the summer to be eligible. So if you haven't applied yet, you can still apply, and eligible expenses have to be dated after April 1st of 2025 and have to be finished by March 31st, 2026. If that makes sense, and if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. And for those of you that haven't done it, if your project is approved, you'll get a agreement package in the mail. You'll sign both copies. And when you get those signed copies, that's when you officially have been approved and you'll get the money if you do the work that is agreed upon. Typically, we've said that a December 15th as a deadline. Now we understand that people are going to be working through the winter and late fall, that we've kind of pushed these back till March 15th. So if you end up finishing your project for irrigation, feel free to reach out to me. I'll try to get out to you as soon as I can. I have quite a few applications to go to because there's been a bit of an influx. But I'll do my best, or I'll send someone else from the department out to help. So where do you find this? It's on the Agriculture Stewardship Program, so you can just Google search that. We do ask that you apply with the appendix, so that's just a general application, or sorry, the application and then the appendix E. So that's water, so that kind of breaks down into what your project is going to cost. Now, we don't need quotes, but we do need a rough estimate of what everything might cost. And then there's also, this is where you can kind of find the other funding as well. So that's pretty much all I had for you today. I won't take up too much of your time, but I'll be around here the rest of the day. So if you want to talk about your project, or if you want to talk about, you know, what we cover, I necessarily didn't go over everything we cover, but I can certainly help you with that. I'll open the floor to questions if there is any. If there isn't, we do have a Facebook page too that we just recently got. So it keeps us up to date on the programming and events that you can certainly give it a follow. But that's pretty much all I had for you guys today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and feel free to reach out to me if you need.
Questions for Kurtis? Any questions?
Pretty easy.
Is there a maximum allowed to, like, is there a limit on the funding?
Yeah, so it's...
Repeat the question. The question was, is there a limit on the funding?
Yeah, so it's $75,000 annually, up to $150,000 for the life of the program. Yeah, so that runs till 2028 March, so till the program resets. Oh, there's no overall farm cumulative, like you can, if you want to spend this much on irrigation, this much on manure, there's no such cap for per farm.
And for the industry? Like,
No, we
are
have,
we doing 100 permits or something, or 100 programs or something like that? Like,
yeah,
yeah. Is there a max on that?
no max.
What's the total funding for the program?
Yeah.
Oh, we are north of $3 million spent on irrigation funding this year, which is a lot compared to what we used to do. So there is, you can tell, there's a lot of applications, and I'm talking to a lot of people. So yeah, we're putting a lot of money towards irrigation because we know there's a need.
I have a quick question. Is agronomy services an eligible cost under the irrigation program if you needed someone to help you, like, set up an irrigation plan or something like that?
No, that's, yeah. We're strictly with, like, kind of equipment and pipeline and, yeah.
Stuff. Okay.
Yeah,
Any other questions? No?
perfect.
Thanks, Kurtis.
Thank you.
Not too many ag industry conferences are ahead of schedule, so I'm going to take that as a win.